Daniel Gilad is a sound engineer and music producer that has been working in the industry for over a decade.
Music for me is about creating relationships through sound. Each piece of music has its own personality, quality, and design. It is a reflection of the artist's soul and a small window to their story.
Daniel has provided services for live sound, studio production, mixing, and mastering to some of Hawaii's finest artists.
It is my job to be able to translate it and shape it to be shared with the world.
Traveling the globe has exposed Daniel to a variety of music, cultures, and relationships. He brings this breadth of perspectives and experiences to his craft and has worked in many different genres, including folk, rock, hip-hop, world, pop, sound healing, and meditation. Contact Daniel at dgsoundcreations.com to learn more about how he can help you with your next creative project. dgsoundcreations.com for all of your audio production needs.
I am pleased and honored to provide post-production services to What School Could Be in Hawaii podcast.
This podcast is funded by Ted Dintersmith, the executive producer of the acclaimed film Most Likely to Succeed, and the author of the best-selling book What School Could Be.
Hey everyone, this is the What School Could Be in Hawaii podcast. I am your host, Josh Rapun. We are near the end of season 2, and our series has earned close to 23,000 downloads. Thank you, my education friends. We will continue to bring you the stories of agile, adaptive, and innovative public charter, and private school educators and education leaders until we have achieved 1,000 points of light. We are many va'a, one voyage, all in it for all kids on all islands. Speaking of 1,000 points of light, today my guests are Wrayna Fairchild and Melissa Montoya, two charter school educators selected for the Hawaii State Teacher Fellows Program. To introduce them, I'm going to read the section of the Public Charter School Commission's newsletter announcing their appointments to the cohort. The Hawaii State Teacher Fellows Program brings together outstanding public school educators from across the state and provides teachers with peer and community engagement skills, tools to facilitate focus groups, along with communication and advocacy strategies. The program is run out of the Hawaii Department of Education's Leadership Institute. The competitive applications process includes submission of narratives, recommendations, and an interview. When asked why she applied for the fellowship program, Melissa Montoya said, "I wanted to be part of an organization that wants to elevate teachers outside of my own organization. I believe in collective and collaborative teams, so I am beyond ecstatic to engage in opportunities that support public education on a larger scale. Hawaii deserves a system that promotes excellence at all levels of education." Wrayna Fairchild said she applied for the program because I want to further develop as a teacher leader. I have been fortunate to take on a teacher leader role at my school and have had the opportunity to participate in national teacher leader cohorts. Applying to be part of this special group that supports education at the state level seemed like a great fit for me. She adds, Hawaii has some amazing, talented educators. By helping to connect these teachers and working to support their classroom efforts, the practice of all is elevated. And now, here's my conversation with Wrayna Fairchild and Melissa Montoya. Melissa and Wrayna, welcome to the What School Could Be in Hawaii podcast.
Aloha. Mahalo for the opportunity to be here.
Good morning. So happy to be here.
Good morning. So the journeys individuals embark on that result in becoming a teacher are super fascinating to me. Melissa, let's start with you. What's the thumbnail version of your journey towards becoming a teacher at Kamaile Academy?
Sure. I started out in engineering, actually, and I volunteered with a robotics competition. And it was kind of there that really piqued my interest in creating and molding these future engineers because I was so impressed by these 10-year-olds and their problem-solving abilities. So from there on, I kind of just started pursuing education and keeping engineering in the back of my mind.
What was happening in that moment? Like, what was the energy that you were feeling with those kids in that moment, Melissa?
Yeah, it was because I wasn't involved in education too much prior. It was just so surprising to me. And I felt that same energy from them. I was so, again, impressed by how they could see these real world issues, see these problems that were arising in their communities, and coming forward with a proposal and a plan of action for what they wanted to do. And again, being so young, these were third graders that were talking about it. I was just so thoroughly impressed that I kind of decided, okay, I think this is where my journey is going to begin towards education.
Wow, that's an awesome story. What magic. Wrayna, what's the thumbnail version of your journey that brought you to your current position at Voyager Public Charter School?
Well, I've been an educator since day one. My mom used to share stories of coming into my bedroom when I was 7, 8 years old, and I would have my blackboard teaching my younger brother math. So I was born ready. So I taught, I went to CSU Channel Islands and obtained my teaching degree, taught several years in California, and then moved out to Hawaii, where I've had a number of experiences and in different schools.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's awesome. The Channel Islands, that's amazing. I didn't even know that there was an institution connected to the Channel Islands. Like, what is that? What is that?
It's not as incredible as it seems. It's actually located in Camarillo, California, which is in Ventura County.
Oh, okay.
So there are Channel Islands, but unfortunately I was there on the mainland.
Right. Okay. So Wrayna, at the bottom of your resume, I discovered you have traveled to 54 countries so far. And I read a wonderful essay you wrote about teachers and travel. In what ways did the arc of your life change as a result of all of your travels? And in particular, Wrayna, I'm interested in your macaroni and cheese pairing of teaching and travel and your concept of bringing back instructional gold.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a born traveler my whole life, but really haven't had the opportunity to travel internationally until I was about 30 years old. So majority of my travels have been in the past 10 years or so. And I've been really fortunate and blessed to have different opportunities that I've been able to apply for that have been structured in specific ways that they would improve my instruction and, enhance my teaching. There's a number of grants and teacher travel fellowships out there that I've come across and have been able to benefit from. And that was my intention with my essay, was really highlighting some of the things that I've brought back and encouraging other teachers to apply for these opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. And your concept of bringing back instructional gold, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, what I refer to instructional gold, when you go on these adventures, you bring back, of course, things to share with the students, whether it's videos or mementos, pictures of King Tutankhamun's tomb. But really what I see as the instructional gold are the stories and the experiences that I bring back. So I've been quite fortunate to visit a number of schools while I've been traveling and to see different programs they have in place, whether it's different arts programs or culture programs or sustainability programs, and being able to learn from these schools and bring them back to my campus has been really rewarding.
Wow, that's amazing. And of all of the 54 places, I know this would be probably a hard question to answer, but what is the most golden gold that you've brought back from a particular location?
Well, in 2014, I was fortunate enough to receive a fund for teachers' travel opportunity to go to New Zealand for 6 weeks with the intention of studying sustainability and specifically looking at their what they call green gold schools that really excel in their sustainability programs. So not only was the country of New Zealand absolutely stunning, but being able to speak with, I had tours by students and administrators, and seeing these programs as they played out across campus was truly inspiring.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And Melissa, at one point in the past, you were pursuing nuclear engineering in college. And assuming that all interesting things come from wonder, what were you wondering at that point that led you, for a while at least, towards that field?
Yeah, it actually came from a teacher, my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Blinn. She had this activity where we had to kind of identify what we wanted to be in the future. And I was a little lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And she gave me several books and said, look at these different avenues you could go in. She knew that I was more accelerated with math. So she kind of gave me a nuclear engineering book. And from then reading up on it, looking into nuclear engineering programs, kind of finding that bridge between helping people through being nuclear, into nuclear medicine more so, kind of really helped me to hone in on what I wanted to do in terms of helping people. That's always kind of been something that was always within myself, that I knew I wanted to help people in some way. So that's where the curiosity came from. And I ended up going to U of I for nuclear engineering.
Wow. And it always seems to come back, right, to a teacher who offers something in a particular magic moment, and then the student is sparked. And it sounds like that's what happened to you in that moment. That's very cool. So, Melissa, I think a lot of educators and education leaders would agree that building a school culture that looks and sounds and feels like family, or ohana, is a North Star we should all be sailing towards. So how has Kamaile Academy gone about building that sense of family, or what we might call a caring and connected community? In other words, what choices has the school made, or what choices must the school make if it desires to be an extended family for its students and its faculty and staff?
Yeah, so we actually have a number of programs at our school that really supports our students and their families. And within all these programs, we have all our different educators at different levels that are they have multiple hats. So we know that we're all there for the students. We know we're there for the families. And for our students and their families, we have something called the Navigator Center. So it's really supporting our students, whether it's their slipper broke and they need, footwear, or they didn't get breakfast that day. They came late to school. They slept in. Maybe they need some breakfast first thing in the morning and they weren't able to catch it at the CAF. And those are just a couple of the ways that we kind of try to support our students with, just in the ready to learn environment, making sure that they have all their basic needs met so that they're able to be at school and be able to learn academically.
We're going to come back to the Navigator Center in a little bit, but what is your specific role in developing this caring and connected community at Kamaile?
Yeah, so my role, I'm an instructional coach and I work really closely with the teachers. So we have a number of teachers that are not from Hawaii, not from Oahu, even from Oahu, that aren't as familiar with the coast on Waianae. So when we're talking and having conversations, sometimes I didn't realize that there were students that live in certain areas that, they have to share a bedroom with their siblings, or they didn't know that their lives were so different when they live 20 miles away. So I think for me, having those conversations and really developing that identity as a teacher really helps out with the students and how we can make sure we're meeting our students' needs.
And getting to know all the students. Everybody knows all the students, yeah, as much as possible.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's very cool. Wrayna, Voyager's website states that kids will have opportunities to do the following. And I'm actually going to read this out all the way. Embrace learning as a lifelong process, learn how to learn, be responsible for their own learning, understand what it means to be a human being and to work together with others, engage in complex thinking and problem solving, recognize and produce quality performance and results, and become contributors to their community and to the world. So I want to focus for a minute with you on two of these. What does Voyager do day in and day out to help students understand what it means to be human?
That's a great question. And, I think that's one thing that our school does really well. We have a really small community. We have currently 275 students, K-8. And one of our guiding principles, we have 3, is all one family. And I believe that everyone on campus, the students and as well as the staff, truly emulate that, whether it's an older student being a mentor to a younger student or seeing someone on campus that needs help. So really, walking the walk and really building that community has been essential to show that we are human.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the learning that happens for all students day in and day out, how is that structured at Voyager so that kids are coming to understand what it means to be human?
A lot of what we do is project-based learning. And in my classroom, I do a lot of engineering design process and design thinking. And part of it when they're moving through the process is, understanding that failure is part of the process. And, it shouldn't be something that you can, get right away. That kind of working through it and mucking through the muck is part of being human and part of, helping you move forward.
Right. And what does it mean to learn how to learn? And I realize that's like such a ginormous question in education, but what does it mean to learn how to learn? And what does Voyager do to nurture and coach that skill?
Yeah. I think that's a, really important skill. And we have different processes in place on campus that really helps build that. So one thing that we embrace school-wide is the habits of mind and also a growth mindset. So we talk a lot about, again, keeping that positive mentality as well as the students being at the forefront of their learning. We do a lot of reflection on personal growth and also on our classroom community. We've embraced the Sanford Harmony SEL program last year. So we have daily morning meetups and where, we're focused on the students' needs and our community as a whole.
Mm-hmm. And I also did some reading on your website about something called quantum learning. I wonder if you could just briefly explain that.
Yeah, quantum learning is a great way to, again, check in. So we have something called student quality factors and teacher quality factors that we established together at the beginning of the year. And you can see them kind of as like goals that we're constantly striving for together. So my students set quality factors for me, and together they set them for themselves as a students, as a class. So it's something that we continually check in as a community and see how we're doing. And we check the data as well.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Melissa, I want to return to something that you were talking about just a minute ago, the Navigation Center. Because of a recent conversation with a woman in San Diego who built an education consultancy called Wayfind Education, and she has ties to Hawaii. And a recent conversation I had, a podcast interview actually with an author who writes about the idea that knowing one's personal navigators is an essential competency for success. I was really struck by the role of Cozy Mendoza, who works out of your Kamaile Navigation Center. So what is the significance of Cozy to the development of a caring and connected community at your school? And why is Cozy's story so important to Kamaile's story?
Cozy Mendoza, she's amazing. everyone on campus knows Cozy right away. She is running around doing something, helping someone. She is actually from the community, and she really kind of has this mission to help all families and students within our community. Mm-hmm. So with that, whether it's helping out with housing, helping out with food, helping out with a job, she just really knows that if we don't have even our parents at a place that can support our kids, then we want to make sure we can help to get those needs met. So and it's so funny because I was talking to her director the other day, and she was just saying how, Cozy does house calls that like formally, but she also does those conversations in person. She'll see them at the supermarket. She'll see them at the store, wherever it is. She's always just engaging with our community so much that everyone really, we have parents coming in to see Cozy even. So it's really amazing the dynamic she has with all of our families that really just supports them so much.
Yeah, it really strikes me, Melissa, that in some ways, I mean, all schools have a counseling department, or at least I would think that all schools do, public, private, and charter. But this sounds very different. And I'm wondering in this moment, if another school wanted, if someone was listening to this podcast and they're like, that would be really interesting to have on our campus, a navigation center. Is it really dependent on somebody like Cozy? Does it have to be somebody like her? Or is the center itself built in such a way that there are different types of people that could occupy the role that Cozy occupies now?
I think it comes down to the investment you have in the community. Cozy being from the community and firsthand experiencing what some of our parents are experiencing is what really gives that leverage for her. But that whole program, the Navigator Center, our AOLA program that even helps out with funding for if a student's house burns down, we were able to give money to them. So it's kind of a lot of help from partnerships and being able to get that funding, get food for our students through our Keiki pantry. And she runs the show. She's a hammer. So so definitely finding someone like Cozy that has that leverage with the families, but is also just such a doer is pretty vital.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And how do your fellow teachers, Melissa, see you as a navigator they can turn to in specific moments?
Yeah, so what's great about my role is that I'm not an evaluator, and we can have very frank conversations with anything they want to try out new in the classroom. I say, okay, let's do it. Let's try this. To even support with student conversations. Melissa, how do I have this conversation about vaccines in my class when we have parents that don't really believe in it or believe in COVID? So it's being able to help them navigate through that and have those conversations. With my coaching role, I'm not giving too many suggestions, but really trying to help them to navigate it on their own. And I like to tell them, like, I don't want you to need a coach. I try to get them to really see that they know the answers, they have it in them, similar to what we do with students, right? We know that they have it in them. We know that they have the answer.
Yeah, that's really cool. Wrayna, I have thought for some time now that the keys to developing a caring and connected community lie partly outside of a school's campus, especially if that outside is in nature. You shared with me an art installation your 5th and 6th graders created to bring awareness to life underwater. And the result, based on a video you shared with me, seemed to be a collective expansion of care and connectedness for and with others and for planet Earth. It was a remarkable video. So how did you and your kids achieve that? What did you guys do?
Yeah, so I'm part of a fellowship, the NEA Foundation's Global Teacher Fellowship. And so through the fellowship, we were encouraged to embrace the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So that's something that my students have focused on for actually a full year. And so towards the spring, one of the areas that the students really honed in on was goal number 14, which is life below water.
Mm-hmm.
We live in Hawaii. My students go to the beach daily. It's such a part of who they are in our community. And so marine debris, is always a hot topic and something students were passionate about. So we were doing some research and came across an artist, Asher J., who had created a marine debris-based installation to bring awareness. And so the students decided that we would do the same. We would bring a similar installation to Hawaii. So that's kind of where the idea was born from.
Mm-hmm. And if you can just describe, I know it's hard to do for a radio audience, right? For audio listeners, but if you can describe what happens if they were to watch the video, what would they experience?
Okay, of course. So first I should back up and say, part of it is at Innovation or Voyager, we do a lot of collaboration. And so this wouldn't have been possible without our art teacher. So we partnered with her. And so we did the learning in class, and then she kind of went from there with the students, and they each took plastic bottles and created works of art, ocean-based works of art on these bottles. And then so from there, they each spoke to the ocean. They had a statement. So what you would have seen if you had come into the room is a lot of lights. We had kind of flowy ocean lights and a lot of draped ocean colored curtains to kind of simulate the ocean. The students' artwork was hanging from the ceiling and kind of swaying with the fan to emulate, bottles floating in the water. And then you could hear in the background the sounds of the waves kind of crashing and then being spoken on top of that. My students' pieces, their messages to the ocean.
Wow. So when I watched that video, I've watched it a number of times, actually. I was mesmerized by it because you're kind of, I swim every morning in the ocean, long distance. And there are a couple of moments over the last couple of years where I've actually run into some kind of debris in the water, like a plastic bottle, a milk jug, or something that's blown into the water. And it's a very shocking moment when that happens. You're startled by it. And then you're like, how could this be in the ocean? So I love the idea that your students were working, to bring that kind of awareness. And I'm curious to know, what kind of reflection did you do with them once the installation was in and people had experienced the installation?
Of course, yeah, we did. We did reflect independently on their piece of the project. Students took on different components to help, piece it all together. There were a lot of moving pieces. And then, a big piece of it was getting feedback from the audience. We happened to have it on display during our student-led conferences. So the entire school community and even some of our partners from the nonprofits that we partner with were invited to come. And so getting that feedback from them was really powerful for the students.
Yeah, sounds like a full-on public exhibition of learning in every way, shape, and form.
Definitely.
So that's awesome. So hey, everybody, let's take a minute to reintroduce today's guests. Wrayna Fairchild and Melissa Montoya are two of our Hawaii Charter School educators and members of the current Hawaii State Teacher Fellows cohort. So I am reading a book right now about the TV show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and the ways that Fred Rogers nurtured an innate sense of wonder in children over more than 30 years of episodes. So Wrayna, I'm going to start with you. There is a section in your resume where you list qualifications, grants, and involvements. And your list is, frankly, astonishing. I kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and couldn't seem to reach the end of it. What that list suggests to me is a remarkable sense of wonder and curiosity about the world and your role in it. So what are one or two of the items on your list that demonstrate that sense of wonder and curiosity?
Oh, great question. One that comes to mind right away is it was when probably my third year teaching, so quite a number of years ago, there was an opportunity I saw advertised to be part of Seymour's Teacher at Sea program. And that's something, I didn't have any experience at sea. I wasn't sure if I would spend the entire time seasick, but I went ahead and applied for it, just to be out on the ocean and to learn from scientists. And it was such a powerful experience, being able to be part of the entire operation, whether it's, sending down the CTD array to collect samples or having breakfast next to a scientist and getting to talk story. It was a really powerful experience that I'm really glad, I kind of took that jump to seek the opportunity. And then actually,
yeah, another one.
Actually part of that experience at the end, just out of natural discussion around the dinner table, scientists had different theories on whether if you send an egg down below, if it would crack or not. And so on the last day, we got permission from the head scientists, the 3 teachers, to conduct our own inquiry and experience. And so we got to send eggs down to the depths of the sea. And it came up, and all the scientists stayed up till midnight to see the results. And 2 of the 3 eggs made it. So we had them for breakfast. But just, even being on board, nurturing our sense of curiosity, it was an all-around awesome experience.
Wow. I wish I had been a fly on the wall as you were talking about that around the table, wherever you were doing that. That must have been quite a conversation.
Yeah.
So, Melissa, you shared a cover letter you wrote for a position at the University of Hawaii Institute for Astronomy Research Experience for Teachers. And in that letter, you talked about igniting in kids a love for sciences. Ignite is a powerful word to me, and especially in the context of astronomy and rocket engines and space and all that kind of thing. And so what is the role of an educator who wants to ignite wonder and curiosity and a love of learning in young people? And I realize that's a big question.
I think for me as an educator, and when I was in the classroom, and something I tell my current science teachers now that I work with, just really making sure that we're trying to pique interest of our students, seeing what's relevant to them. And one of those things that they were really interested in over and over again, year after year, and though it wasn't part of our curriculum, was astronomy. There was so much curiosity from so many kids over the years that wanted to know more about astronomy. So for me, it was kind of, okay, how do we embed that? How do we nurture that curiosity for our students? And in terms of igniting that science passion, really trying to make sure that we support them. So our freshman year, we had science fair, and students would always want to do something with astronomy, which is a little more difficult. But it was just trying to find partnerships, trying to find information on how we can really support our students to be successful in navigating that curiosity. So whether it's just saying, okay, I will support you with this, and making sure that students understand that they are able to pursue something they're interested in. Or even for sciences, science can sometimes be overwhelming for kids, and they may have not had the best experiences prior. So really just trying to show them that there is a science field for everyone, showing that there is so much to learn. And that's why I love science so much, because it's always evolving. It's always changing. There's always something to read and learn about. So that's where I kind of try to evoke that with my students as well.
I remember in middle school and high school for me, which was a very long time ago, that the sciences were very painful for me as subjects. I didn't do well, and they were typically taught, sage on the stage. I was talked at a lot, and I didn't understand and couldn't find a way to care about it. But I realized later that growing up, in Kahaluu, on Kaneohe Bay, that all of my science was actually happening outdoors. Every day, all day long, there were things happening, but it was all outside of school. So that's super interesting, Melissa. Wrayna, your resume lists several librarian positions at different schools, public and private. For just a minute, let me pretend that I am a new principal in West Oahu at a big middle school with a big but very outdated library with nothing in it but rows of metal shelves and mostly stacks of old encyclopedias, and the kids never go there. It's just you and me, and we're having coffee and talking about what a 21st century school library might look and sound and feel like. So what are your thoughts about this? And who would you want involved in the process of remaking and reimagining this library space?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. In my last semester of getting my master's degree in library science, I actually took an independent study on designing library spaces. So we could, if you and I were having coffee, we would be talking all morning about this. But yeah, the 21st century library is definitely not, the silent library of, days past. You would definitely want students in there. So having resources to, provide them with what they need, whether that be, access to technology or, high quality, digital resources, as well as print materials. But I would definitely envision, a space for students to work on projects that they deem essential, whether that be something 3D printing or whether that be, just an open space with a projector available or a screen available if students need, to collaborate, maybe a whiteboard table so they could get busy and make notes. So really, harnessing that, their energy and their ability to collaborate and making that a library space conducive to that.
So I'm pretty sure, Wrayna, that I'm going to have a hard time, especially as a new principal, convincing some faculty members to think outside of that box, that they've been in maybe all of their lives. Libraries are for books, and they're supposed to be quiet spaces of study. How do I go about having that conversation with them?
Yeah, I understand how that can be a difficult conversation. And, there could be, you can show examples and you can kind of show data, but really a piece of it is just kind of taking that first step and perhaps even making, somewhat small changes and letting others see the benefits and see the students' excitement. That will definitely come.
Mm-hmm. I want to enroll them in the process. And I think that's where my worry is that, it's always good to be inclusive and to bring more voices into the process of reimagining a space like that. But what happens if they come in and basically their voices say, well, we should have, books. We need all the books in here. That's my concern. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think that's where myself as a librarian and, my skills would really come into play, having those meetings, whether it be with grade level teams or school-wide, to kind of get an understanding of what their syllabus is for the year and what their plan is, and then finding ways to support their projects and, really advertise the space as, a benefit not only to the students, but also to support their work in the classroom as educators.
Mm-hmm. It sounds almost like we would be creating a navigation center for the kinds of cool innovations that are happening on campus and reconceptualizing the library in the process, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Melissa, I want to talk about a theory of change called small steps. So small steps that oftentimes can lead to big, even transformational change. The term accountability can often in school settings have negative connotations, but you took a small step and implemented something called accountability buddies on your Kamaile Academy campus. So what was that all about and what was the result?
Yeah, so this was actually with our executive leadership meeting that is administrators, our curriculum team, and then as lead coach, I am also at that meeting. And with everything that happened this year, some of our asks, our wants, our needs were kind of being overlooked. So I wanted to make sure that, hey, we got answers for our teachers so that they can help support the students. So part of that was saying, okay, guys, let's create a new role. And it was, Melissa, are you willing to be this role? I said, yes, absolutely. I'm still the role as the accountability buddy for our executive leadership meeting. And just that follow-up, that like gentle nudge of, hey, did you find out about this? Were you able to answer this? And so on. So it helped. We kept it the entire year. We tried it out for second quarter, and we're still doing it now. It's something that we've put into our agenda items to just make sure that we're all moving forward, because our teams didn't want to be stuck either. So it really was helpful to everyone, and it wasn't meant to be intimidating in any way. It was just a friendly reminder, a friendly nudge.
And what were some of the results that you saw as people gently nudged each other to be accountable?
Yeah, I think it was just getting those answers and people not seeing it as intimidating. I think the follow-up of like, oh no, I forgot this. Oh no, I forgot that. With so much going on right now, it was just, again, just trying to say like, this is a safe place for us. This is our safe place to have these discussions. And we were able to get our answers that we needed for our teachers or for supporting our students.
It sounds like this accountability buddy system actually contributed to a more caring and connected community at Kamaile.
Definitely.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it was just trying to make sure that we saw it as non-threatening. So it really did contribute in that way.
Yeah. And it is really a small step that any campus can take. It's not like a massive change where somebody waves a magic wand and says, you know, we're going to be X instead of Y, and everybody sort of freaks out. It's just a small step, and everybody can move forward with it. That's very, very cool. So, hey, everybody, stay with us. After this short break, we will come back with more questions for Wrayna and Melissa.
This is Guy Kawasaki. If you want to learn how to be a remarkable person, please check out my podcast, Remarkable People. I interview people like Roy Yamaguchi, Margaret Atwood, Jane Goodall, Stephen Wolfram, Steven Pinker, Ariana Huffington, and Steve Wozniak. The point of the podcast is to help you become a little bit more remarkable. To learn more, go to remarkablepeople.com. Thank you.
Hawaii's business people and professionals want to support our public high school students across the state, like me, Law Yagovich, a senior at Ku'uku High School. And Hawaii's teachers and other educators want classroom speakers, curriculum advice, contest judges, mentors, and other support from businesses and nonprofits. The Climb High Bridge is Hawaii Department of Education's official platform to connect the two communities. It's like Match.com, specifically designed to connect businesses and schools. Learn more by sending an email to info@climbhigh.org. That's spelled CLIMBHI.org.
Hi, friends. Toy Hirschman here from the Entre Ed Talk podcast. I am super excited to support the What School Could Be in Hawaii podcast hosted by none other than the amazing Josh Rappoon. And I also want to give a big shout out to all of the incredible educators in Hawaii who are doing unreal things in the entrepreneurship and design-based thinking spaces. I hope you all subscribe and listen to What School Could Be in Hawaii. And also, hey, why not check out the Entre Ed Talk podcast, where we interview stellar entrepreneurial educators and entrepreneurs from across the country and globe. I cannot wait to connect with you.
Hey everyone, this is the What School Could Be in Hawaii podcast, and we are back with Wrayna Fairchild and Melissa Montoya, two members of the current Hawaii State Teacher Fellows cohort. So, Wrayna, you shared with me something called the 2016 Mental Floss Innovations in Teaching Platypus Award. I almost gave my daughter Emma her middle name as Platypus. That would have gotten me divorced, but so that's why I didn't as her middle name, because the platypus was actually my favorite animal as a child. So this really caught my attention, as you can imagine. But really what caught even more of my attention was the idea that school is in, but class is outside. So what was it that Mental Floss highlighted in your work? And they did this in a magazine spread that you shared with me.
Yeah, correct. So I was nominated for this award. Every year, the Platypus Award is in a different field. It's been in sound and taste. And in 2016, it happened to be in education. So they awarded 10 educators across the country with this award. And so I was nominated. I'm actually not sure who nominated me, a former, colleague or parent, maybe student. But I got a call from an editor from the magazine, and we spent over an hour on the phone. She was just asking questions and taking notes. And so I actually didn't know what the spread was going to be about. So it was really awesome for me to see when the spread came out in the magazine and to see the graphic designers, work in images and the author's words. So it was really cool to see me encapsulated as an educator on this page. And yeah, they did pick the tagline, where school is in, but class is outside, to really highlight that I do a lot of outdoor environmental ed projects with my students.
And what were some of the specific things that they mentioned in that spread about the work that you were doing?
Yeah, so when I was teaching on Big Island, there was a local beach called Alua Beach that a lot of tourists go to. And so while we were studying oceanography, my students got trained as reef teach volunteers. And so we would go down to the beach on a weekly basis, and they would volunteer their time, and they would educate the tourists on the beach about different ways to care for our coral reef. So that was a great long-term project. We also were studying the cloud forest in Waimea. And so the students devised these inquiry projects. Like one was they noticed that the moss was really absorbent when they squeezed it out. So then they decided to study the moss versus an artificial sponge and see which could retain more water. So we ended up getting a grant to get those books published. And so we had a book release party for those. Let's see, another one, we were studying forces of nature 1 year, again on Big Island. And so what the students did is we looked at our school's earthquake preparedness, and we figured out that it was only about 20% of students that had an earthquake preparedness kit sent in from home. So they did a lot of promotion within the school, and we got to where 100% of students had an earthquake kit.
Wow.
And then we ended up filming PSAs about earthquakes and tsunamis that were aired on TV stations.
I have no earthquake kit at home. I have no tsunami kit. I don't even know that I have a flashlight that works, and I feel shame in this moment. I need your kids here to convince me to do the right thing here. But that's really fantastic. And if I might ask, why the platypus? Why do they have that as the emblem of the award?
Yeah, the way it was described to me is that the platypus is the nature's most unique animal. So they were literally looking for unique, innovative, interdisciplinary geniuses is how it was written. So, these are people in the field kind of really stretching the box.
That's so interesting. My daughter is now a teacher. The apple does not fall far from the tree. And she's a nature educator. And I'm thinking her middle name should have been Platypus. I should have won out on that one. So Melissa, you worked as a STEM educator at Waipahu High School for 5 years. And Waipahu has gotten a lot of attention here in Hawaii as a place where innovation and design thinking are front and center. So what was your experience at Waipahu, and what is school leadership doing there to foster a culture of innovation?
Yeah, so it's interesting because when I moved here, I'm from Chicago originally. Waipahu was the only school I worked at for 7 years. And when I started, we didn't have this academy focus. And then by the time I ended my time there was a very strong academy focus. The first school to be wall-to-wall academies. And it's such a giant school in comparison to the school I'm at now, where that leadership had to be strong, that focus had to be strong for that dream to really come alive. So I know that Principal Hayashi, he has a very strong team with him. I had really great relationships with my assistant principals there. And I know that they were just so supportive of anything and everything we did. One VP that we had that came in new to our school, she said, "Oh, I heard you're doing this, this, and this." And I was just excited as a classroom teacher to be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you're taking so much interest in what we're doing with our kids right off the bat." So I think that plays a huge role in terms of getting that dream to really come alive at Waipahu.
Yeah, that's fantastic to have a school administrator, checking into what you're doing. That's really what it's all about, actually. So it sounds to me like the academy model, which was developed towards the end of your time, was a response to how large Waipahu High School was and is, and that it was a way of innovating through that largeness into something that was a little bit more like a house system, where students would be within a cohort that would go through a particular academy. Is that a fair assessment of what was happening?
Yes. So for the freshmen and sophomores, the 9th and 10th graders, they were actually in houses so that we did have a teacher team that had the same students. And then when they moved into 11th and 12th grade years, it was a little more independent. But within the academy system, it's making sure that all the teachers have the same students regardless. So we definitely see them from 9th grade to 12th grade at any event that academy has and so forth.
That's awesome. So I want to talk about building capacity for innovation through teacher leadership and your selection to be in the 2020 through 2022 Hawaii State Teacher Fellows or fellowship program. And huge thanks to Kristen Brummel for her partnership with me and helping to connect with you and with other teacher leaders on other projects. So Melissa, I'm going to start with you. What are your goals as a teacher leader, both in your Kamaile community and in the greater education community?
I think at Kamaile, because it was such a change of pace for me, and that was something that I was interested. Like I said, I only knew Waipahu. And I said, I need to learn more. I want to learn more about even pre-K through 8. I didn't have any association with prior to going to Kamaile. So I went to this new school. Our secondary program is only 250 kids. So I went from this school of 3,000 9 through 12 to 257 through 12. So in terms of innovation, just looking at how we can really bridge what we're doing at each of the schools. I don't think charter is too different than the public schools, but we do have a little more agency about what we can do for our students and how we can develop them. So something that's really important to our school is our defense system and making sure those students are following that know, do, reflect piece. And I think that reflection, that metacognitive reflection is super important for them to really establish moving forward. So what I would like to see is for that to happen in other schools and public schools, and really trying to make sure that we are bridging those as much as possible.
And what opportunities does the fellowship give you to do that kind of outside of Kamaile work, where you're developing that sense of innovation in other schools?
Yeah, so what's great about the fellowship is we're across the whole state. We have multiple islands with us. Of the 21, me and Wrayna are the only ones that are charter schools. So we do have those DOE connections, and we can kind of help to bridge those gaps. Sometimes we don't really hear what is happening with DOE. So we just want to make sure we have those connections, we have that communication. And I think that's what's really important for me, coming from a DOE public school and then going to a charter school.
So it sounds like what happened with that principal, that vice principal at Waipahu, who was checking in on what you were doing, that's something that you'll be doing out in the community, is finding out what others are working on, and then you kind of take it forward with you.
Absolutely. I really think that for me, it's looking at all the different pieces and trying to make the best of it. So that's been something that I did when I was in the classroom, and now even.
Yeah, that's great. So Wrayna, what has happened so far in your cohort, and what do you see as your teacher leader role?
Yeah, so much has come out of it. I do a lot of professional development. I'm involved in, I think, currently like 5 different cohorts nationally and globally. But this one is really special. Number one, it's all Hawaii educators. So it's in our local community. Everyone in the cohort is super passionate, and Christy and Kristen that lead our group, are always there to offer support and kind of give us a nudge, to keep growing. So far, we've had the opportunity to publish a piece. The essay that what we discussed earlier was an essay I wrote to be published as part of the cohort. We're also being encouraged to create passion projects, either independently or in small groups. Last weekend, we were part of the Choose Love 2.0 virtual conference. That was really neat to serve as a moderator and lead a colleague roundtable in that sense. Next week, Melissa and I'm doing my first Twitter chat, which is something new to me. So we'll be part of the 808 Educates Twitter chat. So all these different opportunities, that have kind of arisen, which I feel really fortunate to be part of.
I was so encouraged, Wrayna, when the Choose Love 1.0 sold out in what seemed like minutes, and then 2.0 sold out again in what felt like minutes. And that just makes me feel like we're making progress in Hawaii when so many educators, want to participate in something like that. And I did a podcast episode with Stacy Kunihisa about her Choose Love interest and what she's done to bring it to her campus and to open up that conference. So that's fantastic. I'm super excited about that. So as we come down towards the end here, just a couple more questions. This one's kind of a big one, but the Hawaii State Legislature passed the state's charter school law in 1994, and has originally passed the law authorized up to 25 existing schools to become student-centered schools as charter schools. And the state's first such school opened actually in 1995. And now we have 37 charter schools on all islands. So to each of you, in what ways have your schools served as demonstrations of student-centered learning and as, student-centered communities? So Wrayna, let's have you respond first.
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate to be part of 3 different charter school communities here in Hawaii, dating back to 2007 when I first started. And I came from a typical school in California where I had 35 students, and it was very much focused on improving test scores. So coming to Innovations Public Charter was like a breath of fresh air, where the focus truly was on student-centered learning. Embedding the arts wasn't something that if there's time for it after we do math, but something that was really viewed as essential part of our learning. That really shaped my way of thinking and challenged me. And, I have been in a number of different schools over the years, but I always come back to charter. Just, I really like the work that's being done. There's that kind of encouragement to kind of, seek out the next thing, and what could be. which is really exciting.
I think that's what's most encouraging for me about our charters here in Hawaii is that we don't have happening what happens so often on the mainland, which is a war between charters and public schools or private schools, that our charters have seamlessly, well, maybe not seamlessly, but to a considerable extent have woven themselves into the fabric of education here in Hawaii in very, productive ways. So, Melissa, what are your thoughts about how Kamaile is serving as a student-centered school and as a demonstration school to others?
Sure. I mean, like we were talking before, it really started with what are our students' basic needs and are they being met? And that happened through our Navigator Center. And moving through, our school is in improvement. So we are trying to make sure that we're still having those high quality instruction classrooms where I come in and I support our teachers to make sure that they are student centered and student relevant. Being a Hawaiian focused charter school, we do focus on really the whole child and making those culturally relevant decisions when we are giving instruction. So that's something that I help out with. Here's our curriculum. Okay, now how can we bridge this for our students specifically? How can we uplift our Hawaiian community and make sure that we are really honing in on our host culture here?
And I hope that if there are any listeners out there, Melissa, who are thinking, I'd like to know more about whole child approaches to education, that they would think maybe I should make a trip out to Waianae, to Kamaile, and to talk to you about that. That's really my hope for podcasts like this, is that it serves as a way to connect people if they want to know more. So that's fantastic. So we have come down to the end here. Wow, this time has gone by so fast. So I want to end on a fun note. So Wrayna, you and I share something in common. Way back in 2001, when I was teaching at La Pietra Hawaii School for Girls, I and my U.S. history students put President Abraham Lincoln on trial. And the trial actually happened in a real courtroom downtown in front of a real judge, Judge Michael Town. We put Lincoln on trial for violating or suspending habeas corpus at the beginning of the Civil War. So in the midst of all of the wonderful material you provided for me for my prep, I discovered that you and your students had put Yertle the Turtle on trial in a real courtroom, and I assume presided over by a real judge. And I was like, what? Yertle the Turtle on trial? Like, I read every Dr. Seuss book, So our listeners, Wrayna, are dying to know what were Yertle's crimes, and how did you and your kids carry out the trial?
Yeah, of course. So that happened to be, we were studying government. So we're studying different forms of government. That was a semester-long unit. And so when it came to looking at the three branches of government, we really wanted to find a way to bring the judicial system home to the kids in a powerful way. So we had read Yertle the Turtle in another sense, looking at it as a form, an allegory to dictatorship. So we had the book there, and we ended up using that book in like a civil case. So when he's way up high, and at the end, when the turtle stack collapses and everyone falls down, there was a turtle Sadie that gets injured. So we took it from that sense.
Wow.
So we had the students all took on different roles, and they were very serious with it. The different attorneys would, prep their witnesses, and we did have a judge presiding, and one of our students acted as judge. Parents came, they were the jury. So that was really great to see when the parents, voted against their child.
Right.
But it was awesome. And it was actually filmed on the closed circuit court TV. So we got to watch it back in the classroom as an actual court case.
Wow. That's literally one of the most creative things I've ever heard in an education setting. In my trial, Wrayna, my prosecuting attorney actually stepped out of the courtroom at the very beginning for a minute, and I wasn't sure why. And she'd actually gone outside to throw up in a trash can because she was so stressed about putting Lincoln on trial, and then she stepped back in. She was all composed and stepped up to the podium and began her prosecution. So you never know what's going to happen in situations like that. But that's a great thing. And thank you for sharing that story. So, Melissa, you shared with me a professional paper titled Gravimetric Detection of Earth's Rotation Using Crowdsourced Smartphone Observations. So that scientific paper, Melissa, which I actually tried to read, made my brain hurt. Like I was halfway through it and I thought, I don't think I've understood a single sentence in this whole thing. But your name is listed as a contributor at the end, which is awesome. And so what was your role in this research paper while you were at Waipahu High School? And I gather it involved citizens science.
Yes. So this individual, Sten Odenwald from NASA, he posted on LinkedIn that he had this citizen science project and he needed students from all over the world to collect data on smartphones. And I was like, okay, we can do this. Students have smartphones. I have a smartphone. We have iPads. We'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. So part of it was, and for me, again, trying to tap into that astronomy field, that is something that I'm not fluent in, but really trying to expose our students, just give the opportunity to say, hey, we're going to work with this scientist from NASA. So part of it was just collecting data and analyzing data, which is something that we do through the scientific and engineering processes. So really trying to show students how this is something that even NASA scientists do every day, where we got to have my different classes take data, and being from Hawaii, looking at gravity specifically and what our gravitational pull is here. So it was fun to be a part of. I was really excited for that opportunity for my students.
That was just amazing. And to think, Melissa, about how incredible it must be, or it must have been for students to be able to look at that kind of data. You talk about real world learning. And also, apparently, the end result of this is that a determination was made that you can get very accurate data from cell phones using their sensors, data that helps understand the Earth's rotation, right?
Yes.
So it looks like I may have understood the paper after all.
I mean, that's part of it, right? Every kid, or not every kid, but we have access to it. Yeah. We have access to these different sensors. So really being able to see that and for students to take it and say, okay, this is what I want to do for my science and engineering project, was really fun for me.
Yeah, that's super awesome. So, Wrayna and Melissa, thank you for this time today. Please stay safe, and I hope you get some well-deserved rest in a few weeks once this crazy school year is finished. We really appreciate you being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Josh.
Recently, I started a new way to end my episodes. I'm a great admirer of Hawaii Business Magazine, which does a series each year called 20 for the Next 20. This series highlights mostly younger folks in Hawaii who will be powerful voices for good in the next 20 years. I will end each episode by highlighting one of these amazing individuals. Kara Jabola Karolas is a fierce advocate for women and girls. As leader of the State Commission on the Status of Women, she has helped pass legislation to prohibit employers from asking about applicants' pay histories and to codify Title IX into state law. She's also worked to allow individuals to designate their gender as X on their driver's licenses, and for people convicted of prostitution to have their convictions vacated if they meet certain requirements. Jabola Carolus grew up in an immigrant family in Southern California. She studied international politics at New York University and received a law degree from University of Hawaii at Manoa. She led efforts during the pandemic to distribute laptops to single mothers and created a state feminist economic recovery plan in collaboration with community members. Jabola Carolus is one of the reasons why Hawaii is 1,000 points of light. Thank you for all the work you are doing to support women and girls in our community. This podcast is inspired by the book What School Could Be. Please join the newly launched What School Could Be virtual community by going to community.whatschoolcouldbe.org or by downloading the What School Could Be app from your favorite app store. Support these episodes with remarkable, innovative, and imaginative educators and education leaders by giving us your own rating and writing us a review at your favorite podcast store. The What School Could Be in Hawaii podcast is brought to you by Josh Rappoon Productions. Your host is me, Josh Rappoon. My editor, show consultant, and sound engineer is Daniel Gilad at DG Sound Creations. To learn more about Daniel or to hire him for your next music gig, see our show notes where you will find his Facebook and website URL. This series is funded by education change agent Ted Dintersmith, executive producer of the documentary film Most Likely to Succeed, and author of the best-selling book What School Could Be. Send your feedback to mltsinhawaii@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @MLTSinHawaii and @Josh Rappoon. Finally, please like our Most Likely to Succeed in Hawaii Facebook page and YouTube channel. Friends, stay safe, wear a mask, stay physically distant from one another, and for the love of the gods, get vaccinated. Most of all, please bring kindness and compassion into the world. We need a surplus of both right now. Until the next episode, ahui ho, and we will see you soon.